In association with JungleGamerHD, this review is brought to you by
Crysis is a name that to PC gamers should mean an awful lot. It should mean insane, PC-melting graphics, fast-paced, challenging and innovative gameplay, and an exciting, if somewhat over-the-top, sci-fi story. Some would say that Crysis 2 failed to deliver in some of those areas. It's not that it wasn't a great game, because it was, but it wasn't really what a lot of fans of the first game and its expansion Warhead were looking for. Crytek have assured us, though, that the latest and final game in the trilogy, Crysis 3, will live up to the bar set by Crysis way back in 2007. Let's find out if they're telling the truth. I'll start, as ever, with the story. Crysis 3 takes place in the year 2047, 24 years after the events of Crysis 2, and in that time a lot of things have happened, most of them bad.
Welcome to New York, version 2.0. What have they done?
The mega-corporation and private military Cell have captured New York City and covered it in enormous nanodomes, which they claim exist to contain the still-present threat of the few remaining Ceph aliens, but in reality are a dastardly attempt by Cell to take control of the entire world. It seems to be working. Meanwhile, they've somehow captured our nano-suited friend, Prophet, and are planning on removing his suit for their own nefarious gains. Yes, I said Prophet. Alcatraz, the hero of the second game, is nowhere to be found in Crysis 3, and he's only mentioned once or twice. There is a good reason for that, but to explain it would be full of spoilers, and seeing how awesome the story is, I don't want to ruin it for you. Rest assured, though, that the story is worth experiencing yourself. Anyway, I digress. Throughout his superpowered romp through a ruinous New York to stop the evil deeds of Cell, Prophet talks! Yes, he actually speaks! The silent protagonist Crytek went for in Crysis 2 really didn't work for me. I know it's supposed to make it more easy for the player to project themselves onto the character and such, but instead it just made me feel like I had no control over the decisions that Alcatraz made. He'd just do whatever he was told with no argument at all. In Crysis 3, however, Prophet is a vocal and very enjoyable character to play. Given the crap that's happened to him over the last 30 years, it's fair enough that he's gone a little bit insane. And this does show in the dialogue. He deals with his slight insanity though, and overall is a pretty cool guy. Overall, the story is very nicely written, and the acting is way better than I expected it to be. When I first found out that Psycho, who plays a major role in Crysis 3, would return from the original Crysis but with a different voice actor, I was sort of disappointed. I completely forgot about that disappointment playing Crysis 3 though. The acting and the writing is just that much better than the original.
I've seen this. Cell are toying with powers they can't begin to understand. Whatever they're doing, it's going to bring about the end of the world. We have to shut them down.
Fucking right we do. Let's get moving.
As far as I'm concerned, there's only one major problem with the story. It's too damn short. I only got 6 hours out of it, and that included nearly every optional objective. That was being played on Post-Human Warrior as well, the hardest difficulty, which meant a lot of waiting around in stealth for enemies to get into the right position. I've heard many reports of people finishing it in around 5 hours, and that just isn't long enough. At that length, it feels more like an epilogue for the second game than a game in its own right. Nevertheless though, it's 5 to 6 hours of quality, and it's packed with awesome moments, both set pieces and just gameplay. On that note, let's talk gameplay. The game plays very similarly, as you'd expect, to Crysis 2. The guns mostly feel the same, which is excellent, as Crysis 2 had some seriously good gunplay. The weapons in Crysis 3 sound awesome, look awesome, and feel awesome. I'd go so far as to say this is one of the best first-person shooters I've ever played in terms of how the weapons feel to use. The nanosuit, which came under some considerable fire in Crysis 2 for being weaker in many ways than the nanosuit in Crysis, is unfortunately much the same in Crysis 3. You can't jump as high nor run as fast as you could in Crysis, and that's a shame. They have fixed one major issue though, and that's sprinting. It no longer uses suit energy, thank God. That was one of the dumbest changes Crytek made between 1 and 2, and I'm glad to see it fixed. Crysis 3 also makes use of some pretty big maps, one of which spans over 2 kilometers. While it isn't as open world as the original, it's certainly less linear than Crysis 2, and you're left with plenty of different tactical options with almost every enemy encounter. I will say though that the only way to play it without dying every few minutes, at least on the hardest difficulty, post-human, is absolute stealth. That's made very easy though by the game's signature weapon, the Predator Bow. This will one-shot almost all standard enemies and uses no extra suit energy to fire when cloaked.
Carbon lasers map that bow to your nanosuit. It has enough kinetic energy to stop a rhino dead. With interchangeable heads, you can drop an explosive charge on any target. And best of all, you stay cloaked. You like it now?
I'm coming around.
While this is a nice addition to the game, which looks and feels great, it did seem to make even the hardest difficulty a little too easy. I wouldn't go so far as to say it's the game breaker some have claimed it to be, but a small nerf wouldn't hurt. I'm starting to waffle, so I think that'll do for single player. All you need to know is that it's a short burst of great entertainment with plenty of improvements over Crysis 2 and some replayability. How about multiplayer though? Is it worth playing? Yes, is the answer. It's fast-paced and damn fun. The various game modes offer a lot of different tactical uses for the nanosuit. There's Hunter, in which 2 perma-cloaked nanosuit users armed only with the Predator Bow and 20 arrows go up against 12 Cell operatives. Cell guys who get killed turn into a nanosuit Hunter. If even one Cell guy survives, that team wins. The other new game mode is Spears. It's similar to Crash Site, which was present in Crysis 2, but even faster paced. There are 3 alien spears at permanent positions on the map. Team ownership of each spear earns you points, and the first team to 100 points wins. This is nearly tied with Crash Site as my favourite game mode. It's great fun. Then you've got the game modes that also appeared in Crysis 2. Assault, Capture the Relay, Crash Site, Extraction, Deathmatch and Team Deathmatch. It's all fairly standard affair, based around capturing and holding locations or objects, or just straight up killing other players. But with the abilities of the nanosuit, the awesome gunplay and the super powerful alien weapons scattered about every one of the brilliant maps, you've got a multiplayer game that's at the very least above average. It's damn good fun. Unfortunately, I've already encountered at least 2 hackers or aimbotters in my time playing, and it's only been out a few days. This isn't boding well. Crytek did promise that they fix the hacking and cheating, which was a big problem for Crysis 2's multiplayer. I hope they stick to their word and sort it out. It's not a major problem at the moment though, it's just a little annoying. That's about all there is to say about multiplayer. It's much like Crysis 2's, with a couple new game modes, some improved mechanics and less hackers, at least for now. So, this being a PC-only review, let's talk technicals. This game is absolutely, stunningly, amazingly, fantastically gorgeous. Seriously, it looks better than real life. It's beautiful. There are more graphics options here than there were in Crysis 2, which I like to see. It also implements Nvidia's new TXAA anti-aliasing technology, which I really like. Those of you who've seen my previous reviews for Gaming Dragons will remember that I was still running an over 2-year-old GTX 460. Well, Crysis 3 is the game that finally persuaded me to upgrade. I did play it for a day with my old 460 and it did soldier through. It could just about manage medium settings at 720p and get 60 frames a second. You can forget about full HD though. The card I upgraded to, the GTX 670, which is a very respectable card in terms of raw power, could play medium settings at 1080p and get 60 frames per second most of the time. This game though is a real PC melter. I could run it at the highest settings, but I never got more than 35 frames a second. To get the best experience out of Crysis 3, you're probably going to need to upgrade your PC. If there's one thing that really surprised me about this game, it's the animation, especially facial animation. It really is amazing and isn't getting as much praise as I think it deserves. I mean, look at this.
You had a choice, mate. Everyone has a choice.
I told you everything you needed to know.
Remember these? All the men who died under your command because you were just following orders. Because you had no choice. Just like her.
Psycho.
No, mate. You take that suit of yours, and you go fight your own battles.
Now, I don't know about you, but to me that's almost approaching LA Noire levels of realism. They really did an awesome job with that, and considering Crysis 3 has a much more personal story than the last 2 games, it adds a lot. So, let's conclude. Crysis 3 is a great way to end the trilogy. Many gaming publications are giving it a lower score than Crysis 2. While I don't really do numerical scores, I'd really disagree. In my opinion, and apart from the length of course, Crysis 3 is a better game than 2 in almost every way. If you've played and enjoyed the last 2 games, there's absolutely no reason for you not to pick this up. For those of you who have never played the series before, I'd recommend it to you as well. It's an excellent sci-fi shooter in its own right. You can get your copy of Crysis 3 from ugkeys.com.